As most of you know, Donna Anna has two very difficult arias, and I would like to talk to you a little bit about the first one, Orsai chi l'onore. It has a long, dramatic recitative right before, and it is easy to get carried away. And then you are incapable, unfortunately, or less capable rather, of singing through the aria that comes, Orsai chi l'onore. There are lots of high A's in it, sustained, followed by like a little coloratura down. And you can say, Vendetta ti chiedo, la chiede il tuo cor, la. But I prefer to do it in one breath. La chiede il tuo cor, la chiede il tuo cor. But in the correct octave, you know. I really like this aria, but it was such a challenge at first. I thought that my larynx would shoot out my mouth or like be up in my eyes by the end, or that blood would trickle down the side of my mouth because something like broke from all the screaming. It's very hard to like hold it back. So it's a practice in appoggio, in my opinion. I'm just constantly supporting down and out, and then trying to keep so that I keep everything from bunching up and lifting up the larynx. This is the tendency that I think everyone probably would have, or most people coming to this aria for the first time. But I like to do, since there are two verses, I like to take the first one exactly come scritto and the second one with ornaments. This is just a personal taste thing. Some people say that in Mozart's time, both verses would have been ornamented, probably the second verse with more ornamentation, significantly more fioritura, but the modern style is probably more traditional, and people don't want to mess too much with Mozart because it tends to be basically perfect. But I like, for example, so the first time, Orsai chi l'onore. The second time, Orsai chi l'onore. So I just add little appoggiaturas, and this is like a fun little way to shake it up. But I also add some ornaments that I wrote. The most different one, actually I worked on it a couple of times. I had it suggested to me by a conductor in Dresden, that you could add a D. You could go Vendetta ti chiedo, la chiede il tuo cor, la chiede, up to a D. La chiede il tuo cor. But it sounded kind of out of the style to me for some reason, and I was talking to Christine Gerke about it this summer in London, and she suggested that you just build a little bridge. So la chiede il tuo cor. I'm simplifying by going down the octave to show you what it is that I'm doing. But that is the most weird and out there ornament that I do, but I love it. It also adds a new meaning because you say the same text. Now you know what happened, you know who murdered my father, and your own heart is crying out for vengeance. You say this sentence so many times, and it's so dramatic even from the first statement of this text that it's hard to maintain a dramatic arc and then like varied shades. So I try to find a new way to say that text. In the last two productions, I've decided that it's a disappointment in Don Ottavio's not immediate reaction. So that's easy to play because I just like, you know, forget you, you're not even doing what I asked from you. Anyway, I love this aria actually because it's so dramatic, and it's really, I've played it in a variety of ways in different productions, but like I said, the biggest challenge is maintaining the support throughout, so you prevent yourself from getting bunchy and screamy in the larynx and like the larynx lifting up. And the best part about it is the epic drama, and I do love to add that ornament with a D. Hi, now I'd like to talk to you about Donna Anna's second aria, Non mi dir. It's so beautiful, and it shows the softer side of the character. She's trying to reconcile with Don Ottavio, who's finally had it with all the rejection, because he keeps saying, let's get married tomorrow. I will be your father and your husband. I'll solve this problem for you. And she's going, my dad just died? Like, I'm not gonna get married tomorrow. Hello. So he's finally like, you know what? I followed you around. I do everything you ask. And he's had it. So he calls her crudele. Crudele, cruel one. And she says, crudele? Oh no. My dear, it's been too long since I put off what we both want, but like, I'm in mourning, you have to understand, and it's enough. Abbastanza. Abbastanza per te, mi par l'amore. And this is on a floaty high B flat. And I used to think, actually someone told me once, you don't have the kind of voice that can float a B flat. And I was so upset about it. I was like, I can do anything! Don't tell me what I can't do! So I went home and I worked hard. I figured out that in the phrase before the floaty B flat, I have to support a lot and then keep supporting throughout. So I go, but it's sometimes easier to go, see, this is not floating. This is just singing, right? So I've learned, luckily, to float this B flat in the recitative, which I love doing. It's a beautiful little moment. There are so many little things to this one, but I don't think personally that this aria lends itself well to ornamentation, even though there is a repeat. Often there is a bridge between the first and second verses, so there's this breathless moment where the audience is going, oh my gosh, please breathe, and then you don't, and then they go, oh, and it like knocks the breath out of their own body. That can be really effective. Our conductor for this production at the Met, Cornelius Meister, is not in favor of that. He would rather have them separate with a long pause. So I do, right before I go up, I resolve, and then it sits for a second, and then we sing No Mi Dir to the second verse. I tend to also to favor a bigger dynamic for the first one and as soft as possible for the second verse. So this is hard because it sounds so soft. You want to be soft from the first moment, but again, I think for the sake of contrast, it's important that the first statement of the text, No Mi Dir, is pretty mezzo forte or like mezzo piano, and then the second statement is pianissimo. So I add a teeny ornament. So this is the ornamented version that I do in the second verse. See? So it's very simple, just a tiny little ornament, but basically I keep it very gentle and soft, this one, mostly because the bravura comes in the second section. And this I had such a hard time with because it sounds kind of depressing. You say, forse un giorno il cielo ancora ha pietà di me. So maybe someday heaven will take pity on me. It just sounds kind of depressing, but then I decided it's a hope. So she's saying, actually, I do believe that someday I will overcome the tragedy, the sadness, and I will be able to move forward into the future. And this hopefulness, I think, is probably what Mozart heard in the text, which is why he said it like this. And it goes on and on with all these beautiful and I like to think, because then you say, Sentirò pietà di me. Then you sing this again, the same phrase twice, Sentirò pietà di me. And I think the first one is di me, and the second one is di noi. So the first one is, maybe someday heaven will have pity on me, and then the second one, maybe someday heaven will have pity on us, you and me, Don Ottavio and Anna. So it depends on the production. In this production, I want the audience to leave with a lot of hope for this relationship, and that's how we accomplish it with this beautiful aria. Even in this production, we kiss at the end. Sometimes it just feels like there's no reconciliation possible between these characters, but I want for it to be possible for her to overcome the trauma of the rape with Don Giovanni in the beginning and the murder of the father, and he is ultimately a very supportive character, Don Ottavio. He's probably a good choice for her, so I guess it depends on how it's played and how it's directed. But that is how I love to sing No Mi Dir.